Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is a very special show we've got tonight with a collection of people within the boxing world. Starting with Dave Allen. Dave, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Excellent. We've got Boxing Gossip, who does his own YouTube channel there. Excellent work he does as well. How are you?
Evening, everyone. I'm good, Ingram.
Excellent. We have Chris Goulding.
Evening, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And we have Louis Gavin.
All good, thanks, Ingram.
Okay, great. Quickly, you're just going to go around the room and just find out where everybody is and what they're doing. Dave Allen, first with you.
Yeah, I'm in Leeds, Ingram. At home in Leeds, yeah.
Excellent. Chris?
Home in West Sussex.
Boxing Gossip?
I'm in Surrey.
Okay, and Louis?
At home in Leicester, Ingram.
Fantastic. Okay, so now we'll start with Dave Allen, the heavyweight. So how are things, Dave?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Just winding down training now. Ready for my fight next week against Czech Republican Jindřich Velecki, last seen fighting young Eubank Fury on Spike TV. Stopped 4 times in around 50 or 60 fights. So hoping to stop him, and then we're moving on to hopefully a title fight on a Matchroom show in October.
That's fantastic news. Absolutely fantastic news. I'll open the floor straight away. Boxing Gossip, have you got anything to say?
Yeah. Very much enjoyed the stuff that you've done with Dave in the past, Ingram. Very much enjoyed the interviews. Dave, I could see you sparred with a number of the sort of heavyweights and cruiserweights on the British scene at the minute. I was kind of interested to ask you, who have you sort of sparred who's possibly a bit under the radar, who the average guy doesn't know about, who you really rate and who we should be looking out for?
Yeah, apart from Joshua and the Furies aside, and a few other names, top names, there's a lot of good heavyweights about. A lot of them under the radar. I think possibly the best may be the cruiserweight Simon Vallily from Middlesbrough, the Commonwealth Games gold medalist in 2010.
Right.
He's about 7-0, and he probably should be British cruiserweight champion right now. He's he fights. He just seems to fight once every 4 or 5 months on Matchroom shows when they're up in Newcastle or in Leeds. So he's probably the best. Also, Danny Price, who's a cruiserweight from Scarborough, but he hasn't boxed in a while. And I find that the cruiserweights are usually better than the heavyweights. I think in Britain, apart from the top 10 and a few further down, it's thin on the ground really. So
that's interesting. Is it like an athletic thing that the cruiserweights are a bit like faster, a bit snappier?
Yeah, I think a lot of these cruiserweights, moved up from 14.4 into the natural weight of about 15 stone. They'll have a lot of success. So I'm happy for them to stay where they are.
That makes sense.
You're right, guys.
Adam Forsey has joined us in the room. We're in the middle of... We started, Adam, just talking to
Dave
cool. Allen. So, Chris Goulding, thank you for those questions there, Boxing Gossip. Chris, have you got any questions there?
Yes, thanks very much. I've really enjoyed the stuff with Dave. Dave, sparring with Tony Bellew, great experience for you.
Yeah.
How's that been going the past couple of days?
Yeah, I sparred with Tony Bellew the other day, and the first thing that surprised me is how big he is. He's taller than me. I'm 6'3" and about 17.5 stone. He was taller than me. He seemed bigger than me. So I did like heavyweight. I don't know, but he's a quality fighter. He's got a brilliant jab, and we did 6 rounds, and it was a good 6 rounds as well. And he said a lot of positive things to me after the spar. He said, I was one of the best heavyweights he sparred, including Hay. He thought I'd beat Chisora right now. And he was really nice actually. I mean, sometimes he can come across a little bit not too well on the TV, but he was really nice as well, and a good fighter.
I think some of that might be down to sort of playing up for the camera's bravado, but it must give you a major boost of confidence when you've got somebody like Bellew, world title challenger on 2 occasions, giving you that sort of bit of your boost to your confidence.
Yeah, it was nice because I don't think he's the kind of man to say things that he doesn't mean. So it was nice to have things reinforce that others have said. But for it to be said by him, it boosted me massively.
No, he doesn't seem like the sort that says things for just for the sake of it. I think that's really will stand you in good stead for your upcoming fights. Yeah,
for definite. And the opponent I'm facing, one of the only 4 men to stop him was Tony Bellew. So, it was nice for him to say that.
I'm really pleased for you, Dave, and I wish you all the best in your upcoming couple of fights that you've got. It sounds like really, really exciting times for you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's definitely it's hopefully I can get on television soon and people can start to see what I'm all about.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, Louis, your thoughts? Thanks for that, Chris.
No worries.
Yeah, Dave, just want to wish you all the best for your fight, but you've already answered my question. I was going to ask if your fight was at all going to be shown on TV, but you've already answered that, mate. But best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the one upcoming won't be televised, but the one after, we've got our fingers crossed. It'll be televised. Yeah.
Did Paul Butling give any reason why he pulled out? Because he's local to me. Runs a gym over in Melton Mowbray, which isn't far from where I live.
Yeah, he got a cut in his previous fight in Germany, and I don't think he was going to heal in time. And I think he's got another fight upcoming in Russia in October, so I don't think it was worth the risk.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. All right, good luck for your 2 fights coming up anyway, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Adam Forsey.
Yeah, hi Dave. So you've been out of the ring for quite a while, and obviously you've signed with Steffi Bull. Have they got a bit of a long-term plan for you? Because you're still a young fighter. Have they given any indication what they see in the future for you?
Yeah, I think the plan is, we've got a short-term plan is to get Saturday out of the way.
Yeah.
We're looking to stop the fella. He's to be honest, he's a cruiserweight, maybe a light heavyweight. And he's getting old. He's very tough and he's very experienced. He's not a bad fighter, but he's old and he's small. So we're looking to stop him. Then we've got a title fight coming afterwards. Win that. Which fingers crossed is the central area against.
Okay, cool.
Against a good fighter with only 1 loss on his record, and then after the Joshua Dillian White fight, I feel like the winner will, if it's Joshua, will more than likely vacate the title. I'm looking to pick up the British in the next 12-18 months. We're really not messing about because I think it's still on the ground.
Okay, and where do you put yourself in the? Obviously, you've got a little bit of rebuilding to do in terms of your makeup as a fighter, I suppose, and adding extra tools to your arsenal. Where would you put yourself in terms of raw ability with the likes of Joshua, White, Cornish? Where would you put yourself in that lot?
I think I'm probably, it may sound ridiculous to say, but I think I'm the best natural boxer, in the division in Britain.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest. I'm not the most powerful. I may not be the strongest, but I'm probably maybe the best boxer out of all of them. And when you see Tyson and Chisora and Price maybe finished now, and I think Eubank Fury is going a different route to where I'm going. The likes of Sprott is finished. And Joshua, White and Cornish, there's going to be 2 losers out of them 2 fights. And apart from that, there's not really many left. If you look at the ratings, there'll be me, my good friend Richard Towers, who's improved massively with Adam Booth. I think he's going to be a danger to everybody.
Okay.
And then apart from that, there's really nobody about. So I think it's there for the taking for anyone really that's coming through right now.
Okay, mate. Oh, well, finally, just like you were talking about you being one of the best boxers, you think in terms of the heavyweight division, especially in this country. What other attributes do you? Because a lot of people haven't seen you fight that much. But what's your best? What else is good about you? What would you give yourself high marks out of 10 for?
I just think I've got the best chin in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
That's why Klitschko hundreds around with Joshua and Tyson. And I've not been off my feet since I was 18 years old, and that was the only time. So I think I've got the best chin in the division. I've got a great engine, and I can really box. I'm just good at. I think I'm just good at everything, and I think that will, you know, that gets you to the domestic level. That gets you to the British title level, being good at everything. So, you know, I get there, and then, you know, I think if you win a British title after that, you know, it's wide open after that. There's so many different routes, and I think that's where all my competition are going. They're all going down different routes, and it's kind of opening it up to me and a few others to fight it out.
Okay. All right, mate. Well, good luck. Good luck for next Saturday. And yeah, it's great to find out what's going on. And yeah, mate, you sound raring to go. So all the best, mate.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Dave, question I would like to ask you is sparring with Tony Bellew. What is his right hand like? Obviously, you know, there's now a cruiserweight sparring with a heavyweight, and obviously you've taken heavyweight punches. What's it like? How big a puncher is Tony Bellew?
You know, he's a sharp puncher. You know, obviously I will have a lot of weight on him. And, you know, he's not a bigger puncher as the likes of Joshua and Fury and Klitschko. Right. But, you know, he was really busy. He's really busy, really sharp, and a brilliant jab. And, you know, he's a really good fighter. To be honest, he was even better than I expected. You see him on the TV, and you might think he's not that much, but he was really good. But he's at cruiserweight, he'll be a big puncher, but, you know, at heavyweight, 2 stones is a massive difference.
Okay, cool. So, Adam, do you want to continue, or shall I carry on as I am?
What, in terms of what you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, there was, to be fair, there was one thing I did really want to talk about, and I don't know if everyone listened to Ingram's recent interview with Peter Fury.
Yeah.
Yes, it was as always with Peter Fury, he shoots from the hip, no nonsense, no what I call no BS, and the thing that came across the most out of Ingram's interviews with Peter is how humble the man is, and not only that, how there's no trash talking either. He's very, very respectful towards Team Klitschko, which is, I think, is really, really refreshing. The other thing I'll say about Peter, he's a very, very calming influence, and I think personally, this is a personal opinion, I think he'll give Tyson an extra 10%. I honestly believe that his influence gives an added bonus, because, you know, as we all know, he wasn't in America for the Cunningham fight. I think he gives Tyson an extra 10%. I think he keeps him calm in the corner, and I know others may disagree. I think he gives Tyson a real chance, a real opportunity in Germany. But that's just the way I think. But just I'll quickly add, it was a cracking interview as always, Ingram with Peter Fury today.
Thank you very much, appreciated.
So Dave, you know firsthand, elaborating on the point made there about Peter giving Tyson an extra 10%. Like, Peter as a trainer, you know, you know better than anyone. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Peter is. What it is, if Peter tells you something, you know, it's more often than not it's right. And Tyson, you know, Tyson does need that because you know, you've seen it in fights before on you know, the fights on Channel 5 with Parkic and a couple of others where he got put down, you know, and
of course, yeah.
He's not done that in recent fights, and I do think that is down to Peter. You know, Peter's he just has everyone's respect. You know, when I just if Peter says something, you know, you do it. So.
And also, like, what sort of trainer is he? Is he, you know, there's sort of a bit of mistake because he doesn't really give a lot away, although he speaks so straightforward. Yeah. Does he ever put his arm around you and help you out, or is he you know, give you a kick up the arse kind of trainer?
You know, I think he just adapts to the fighter. You know, me and Tyson are very different fighters, as Huey and Tyson are, and Ed is different to everybody on the planet. Ed is a very different man. So, you know, he can adapt to different fighters. He's a very nice man first and foremost, but at the same time he's got the air about him where you just don't want to let him down and you don't want to get on his wrong side. So everyone puts in 100%. You know, I think he's one of the best trainers in Britain right now for definite. You know, just purely on the fact that when you're fighting for him, you know, you're willing to give it 100% in there because of the man he is.
Okay, cool, good. You know better than anyone, Dave. So Ingram, talk about he was very frank about the comments Derek Chisora made about stabbing Frank Warren in the back. I don't know what you guys think. I think they're perfectly within their rights. I think to be honest, I've first time I met the Furies, the fight with Chisora still wasn't signed, although there had been loads of problems, and there were talks about high lawyer fees and wasting a lot of time and money, and he spoke about it in your interview as well, Ingram. Well, yeah. I'd like to get other Boxing Gossip's view on, what do you think? Do you think they should stay with Frank Warren, or do you think they're well within their rights to do what they want to do?
Sounds like they had from Ingram's interview, it sounds like they had a free fight deal, and if it's a free fight deal, then that's the thing, isn't it? It's final after that, and in many ways they'd have been competing at a purse bid scenario, and that's why I kind of enjoyed the interview, because I didn't really know or have any sort of understanding of that sort of relationship there, and obviously it's one of these things where if Frank Warren and Hennessy were potentially going up against each other in a purse bid scenario, the decision kind of makes itself, doesn't it? And if Mick Hennessy, a long-term promoter, is there and in a position to win you that world title fight, why would you be loyal to a guy who you've been partnering with for a year? The real loyalty's got to be towards Hennessy, I guess.
While you talk about that loyalty thing, the question you've also got to ask yourself is, how loyal did the Furies feel with Frank Warren when he was with them? That's the question.
Yeah, there was some very interesting stuff in that interview as well about them not letting him. Peter Fury said this all-together attitude that they were supposedly having. Then they wouldn't tell them the purse bid. It all seems very strange. It all seems like a lot of people don't want to give anything away, and it doesn't sound like it was a great relationship between Team Fury and Box Nation.
Louis, did you want to say something? Louis?
Sorry, say that, Ingram. I didn't catch that last bit.
Did you want to say something?
I've not listened to that interview yet, but from what I've read and what I know, like it's been said before, it was only a 3-fight deal. And speaking to Mick Hennessy at a Derby show that he did for when Huey was fighting, he was just talking about Peter and how loyal the Furies were to him, and he said he's not witnessed anything like that in boxing before, and it when he has the bad days, he always thinks about the journey that they've had. So the Furies are very loyal people, and I think they should stick with Hennessy 100%.
Wow, Chris?
I saw an interview a while ago with the Russian promoter Alexander Frunov, and did you see that one, Adam, as well?
I did.
He seems like quite a rascal. It seems like he's sort of very engaging chap, but the sort of thing I'm led to believe is that he partnered up with Frank Warren for the purse bid, Mr. Frunov, and they were looking to get the fight made in Russia. That was the sort of big rumour that was going around. And I think in this day and age, I don't think the Klitschko camp were too keen on going to Russia for the fight.
Funnily enough, yeah.
I wonder why.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, that is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
But I think that the Warren-Frunov bid was rather would have blown out all the others out of the water. But I think that Peter Fury especially, they played a masterstroke there in getting the deal done. They were very keen to get the deal done, and obviously was it K2 who look after Vladimir? They were only too keen to deal because they didn't want it to go to purse bids, because the Warren-Frunov bid would have won and the fight would have been set for Russia. So that, I think, was one of the main reasons in any obstacles were met quite swiftly towards the end. I think it was a quickly done deal. As far as Mick's concerned, I've got a lot of time for Mick because he gets a a lot of bad rep, and he's had a lot of. He seems like he's a very loyal chap, and he's been. He's had a few fighters of his goals. Carl Froch, who led to a world title.
Yeah.
James Gale, who was mandatory for world title shot when he was under him. I think he had Eubank Jr for a while as well. I will say about Tyson and Peter, they are very loyal people. So I think it will be really good for Mick if Tyson goes on to win the title. He'll be put all his faith, all his hard work, his endeavours, and not to mention his financial backing from the start over the last sort of 6-7 years. It really will be a nice little reward for Mick Hennessy.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think it's important to praise Mick Hennessy a bit. When a few years ago, when boxing was real at the bottom of the gutter, Mick Hennessy was still plodding away, putting stuff on, and all, you know, like Carl Froch is a great example that he was a world champion. A lot of people didn't really know who he was, but he still persevered when a lot of people wouldn't have done. So I just wanted to pop that in there.
I think we have someone else in the room. Is Keyvan? Are you in the room? Hello? Keyvan? Somebody's in the room, all right. Okay. Dave, what were your thoughts on what was being said about Peter Fury and the whole Warren thing?
Yeah, I think one thing I know for definite is Mick Hennessy will be involved to the very end with Tyson and Huey. You know, they're very loyal, and you know, Mick will be there to the end, and that's a definite.
Excellent stuff. Adam, did you want to take things forward from here?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to touch on again, like we were talking there about the Frank Warren Tyson Fury situation and them not getting on. Where do you see? Where do people think Tyson Fury how far he could go if he does beat Klitschko? Do you think Al Heyman's going to come in? You know, because he's although Mick Hennessy's going to be his manager, there's going to have to be some sort of promotional powerhouse behind Tyson Fury, especially.
My only thoughts on the matter for Tyson and the American market. Ingram, obviously, he's interviewed Tyson on many occasions. Has he got that sort of user friendliness that the American audiences would like? Sometimes he can be a bit. Some of his statements, he can be a bit near the knuckle, and especially, you know what the Americans are like. They can be a bit pious. They can be a bit straight laced. Some of his rather outlandish, shall we say, statements, I don't think would go down well on American primetime telly. But whether he could rein it in is another matter.
Okay, well, he seems. Go on, guys.
I think the other thing to consider is would Peter Fury be allowed to travel over to the States? Because I mean, last time for the Cunningham fight, he wasn't allowed due to legal problems.
Yeah,
so
but the reason that was because somebody didn't fill in the application form in time. So it always seemed like a bit of a stitch up. That's what I remember talking to Peter about. Even like 10 minutes before Tyson was meant to go out to fight Cunningham. So it was some sort of somebody didn't fill out the application form in time. So Peter was led to believe his form was filled out in time. It wasn't filled out in time. So when he went to apply to obviously go to America, he got turned back.
That makes sense. So that's not going to be like a recurring problem preventing Tyson.
It doesn't seem so, no, because the thing that was an issue was like happened when he was about 12 or 13. That's what he was saying to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The thing is, my guess is this fight will be on, and I know you touched on this in the interview with Peter Ingram, but I think in all likelihood the fight is going to be on Sky Sports.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And then moving on from there, I mean, you gotta think that the fight with the winner of Anthony Joshua versus Dillian White is such an obvious fight for summer 2016 at Wembley Stadium on pay-per-view. You wonder whether Tyson Fury is necessarily going to need another influence like an Al Heyman when the kind of big money, big stadium fight is already there and probably already so available.
Well, moving on to another heavyweight. What do people make of this? Deontay Wilder's next opponent. Obviously, there was talk of Hughie Fury. Like Hughie Fury, people were laughing at that. Hughie Fury compared to this guy is it's ridiculous. Well, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on here. It seems like Deontay Wilder is taking everyone for a bit of a ride at the moment.
Bermain Staverne's worked it out. He says that Deontay Wilder is counting the heavyweight division rankings backwards. So he starts from 99 back upwards.
but what's even more worrying is that Deontay Wilder probably won't fight. Yeah, everyone wants him to fight Povetkin because everyone sees that as a real big test, and would probably announce Deontay Wilder. We probably won't see that until the end of 2016, with when you add up his next fight and Povetkin's next fight and the purse bid and the delay in it. It's going to be a long way. You know, he's kind of a bit of a. For me, he's not a proper world champion at the moment. He did well against Stavern, but really, Molina and this Dupaus, it's not very impressive, is it?
Well, it's a joke, isn't it?
It is.
It's just
well said.
WBC. It's just an absolute joke how I can fight this Frenchman. It's just crazy.
He's what I call as Ingram would say, you're very fond of saying Ingram. He's what I call he's a belt holder. He's not a champion in my mind. Absolutely. I think it's sort of he was given. I think all the boxing fans would have let him have one gimme, and that was Molina in his home state, Alabama, first world title in the state. He had a gimme, and you'd have thought the next fight would be a reasonable test. Say a top 15, at the very least a top 15 ranked opponent. Obviously, they're going to let the Povetkin mandatory. That's not going to happen for a long, long time. But he's lost a lot of goodwill from the general boxing public, and he's in danger of becoming a bit of a laughing stock.
He already is, I think.
Dave?
Yeah, I think Wilder. I think his team must know he's going to get chinned when he fights someone remotely decent. I think the Molina fight was meant to be a 1 or 2 round knockout job, and he ends up being hard work. So I think that's probably made his team think we need to, we need to keep him wrapped in cotton wool. So I don't see him fighting anybody until he's made to fight anybody. And when he does fight anybody, he's going to get beat, I would think.
How would you see him against Hughie Fury, Dave? How would you see that turning out?
I think that's way too early for Hughie. You know, I think.
Yeah, but say it happened. What do you see the outcome being?
That's a Wilder win for me, for definite.
Yeah. Okay.
No, he's had 33 fights, and he's a grown man, you know, and he's only 20 years old. I can't believe that he's actually still only 20. But you know, Hughie can't be taking these fights right now. You know, the Rudenko and Arias, you know, them fights were 20-year-old, and you know they're unbelievable. So you know, he's not ready for the Wilders of the world just yet.
Okay, mate. And what do let's go back closer to home. What I'll ask you boxing gossip. Matchroom have gone crazy this week.
Miss Matchroom, get it right. Miss Matchroom.
Yeah, Miss Match. Right, Ingram. Okay. Easy. What do you think? What do you think, gossip? Do you like it? I wasn't expecting Smith Fielding to be announced until about last week. They don't. To be fair, a lot of people have been saying it's 90-10 fights. Is this a move in the right direction, do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's in direct response to Al Heyman, you know, coming in and taking De Gale, Selby. Obviously, there's rumours of Kell Brook to follow. And I think Matchroom are kind of having to raise their game, having to put on fights that are going to generate interest and generate money for their fighters. Like you, Adam, I was quite surprised by Fielding versus Smith. I didn't think they'd risk Smith in a fight of that magnitude. They've announced a lot of fights this week, haven't they? I mean, Fielding Smith is the one that really interests me. I can't be doing with Frankie Gavin ever again, I'm afraid. So Fielding Smith is the one I'm looking forward to, definitely.
Okay, well, it'd be nice to get people's views on Eggington and Gavin. I quite like this fight. I know people don't want to see
domestic
Frankie Gavin again, but I quite like it. I think it will show. I think it's better than a lot of fights that could be made, and I was quite surprised they put it on. I thought they might want to do a bit of a Matt Macklin with Frankie Gavin. But how good do people think Sam Eggington is?
Frankie Gavin should be way in front of him.
That's Lee Keevan, is that you?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Good evening, Lee. How are you?
Not bad, thank you.
Where are you speaking from, Lee?
Doncaster.
Okay, excellent. Oh, same area as Dave Allen?
Yeah.
Excellent. Go ahead, Lee.
I just think about Frankie Gavin. He should be way ahead by now anyway. I know he didn't put a decent performance up against Cal Brook, but he should be way ahead of Eggington, anybody like that. He's I don't know. He's not fulfilled his potential, in my opinion, at all.
I have to agree with you.
I've totally gone off him, to be honest with you. Totally gone off him.
Ingram, you liked Frankie Gavin against Kell Brook.
I did.
Were you surprised how bad Frankie Gavin was, or was it a case of Brook being very good?
What it was, I just thought that if Gavin could use his feet and use the Olympic boxing style he had, I thought he could manoeuvre Brook around the ring, nice sharp counters, spinning Brook, frustrate him, hold him, tie him up, mess him about. I thought he'd be able to knock Brook off his rhythm and take him later into the fight. But what I saw Frankie Gavin, he's like he's gone backwards. It was awful. I mean, it seems like when people leave Frank Warren and they go to Eddie Hearn, they just, I don't know, generally their careers just seem to go downhill. Like, from Ricky Burns seems to have made a real resurgence, but, I mean, Frankie Gavin's like a shocker. This is a guy that was a real touted fighter. And then all of a sudden, he just looks like, a guy who doesn't know how to box and, never been anywhere near world class as an amateur. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I find it shocking.
It's because he's got great amateur pedigree that everybody expected him to be a great professional, but
absolutely,
that doesn't always happen, does it?
It doesn't.
Dave, if I could get your view on that point just made there, how much of a difference do you think there is between amateur and pro? A lot of people say, "Oh, he had a great amateur record," but a lot of people say it's almost two different sports. What's your views on it, Dave?
Yeah, there's a lot of difference, but I think with Frankie Gavin, the main difference is, he was a world class amateur at lightweight, and now he's fighting at welterweight. That's the big difference. It's a 12-pound difference.
That's a good point.
And I know the Eggington Gavin fight, I think it was they only agreed to it the day before the press conference. I think the Eggington camp had a lot of. I think everyone apart from Eggington in the Eggington camp, I don't think they fancied it. So I think Frankie Gavin will go into it a big favourite because even Eggington's team now, at 21 fighting Frankie Gavin, even though Frankie Gavin's probably a natural lightweight, just took a beating off Kell Brook. I think it's a hard fight for him, and I imagine Frankie Gavin will probably win, but. Where it goes after that, I'm not really sure, especially at welterweight. I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
No. He's on about dropping down on weight, though, isn't he? He's dropping down to 140, isn't he?
So then why didn't he do that beforehand? I don't get it with him.
Well, he should have done. He's always been too small, really, for a 147 fighter, anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Boxing gossip?
Yeah, I remember I was at the Bradley Skeet versus Frankie Gavin weigh-in. I think you were there. Ingram, and I was looking at Frankie Gavin on the scales from about 6 foot away, and he just didn't look like a guy who was, really in great condition at 147. And I know it's not all about body beautiful, but when you've got a guy who is sort of really, really struggling to generate any punching power whatsoever, and when you've got a guy who is getting dropped by the Leonard Bundus of this world, you're kind of thinking if it's so obvious that you can get the extra £7 off. Why not at least experiment with it? And the warning signs have been there for a long time. It's not just the Kell Brook thing. It's that Bradley Skeet performance. It's the Bundu performance, as I say. I mean, that sort of level puts him a long way away from world level. I just think there's an obvious change to be made there, and the fact that they've been resistant to making that change is a real sort of question mark in my head.
The thing is, when I saw Frankie Gavin, I was right next to when I was an amateur, I used to box at welter, and I looked at him, and I'm thinking to myself, you? And I said, then I looked at him, and he took up his, I see in the video, he took up his shirt, and you can see there was not an ounce of fat on him. And that was like, he said he was like killing himself to make the weight. And that's 147. So either he's not, to me, it sounds like he's not doing his diet right. That's to me. But I don't know what he does behind closed doors.
I think so. That was in Empire Cinema in Leicester Square, wasn't it?
That's the one.
Funny enough, I left the cinema after he'd weighed in, and he went straight to the counter where you buy your popcorn.
Yeah.
And ordered like an extra Coke, and he was literally standing there next to me, like necking this Coke, like desperate.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
At the scales, and I remember it. I think you're right, Ingram. When it's a guy like that who is so small and he's that tight at the weight, it's got to be a diet thing, hasn't it?
Gotta be.
Yeah.
He's always been renowned for being a little bit not very good with his diet anyway, has he?
Yeah.
He's always been a bit of a player anyway, hasn't he?
So do we think the future doesn't look particularly bright for Frankie Gavin? What is he going to go try and maybe win a British title again, or
the future's chocolate brownies for Frankie Gavin? That's what it is.
He's already tasted them.
Oh dear.
You're listening, Frankie.
Oh yeah, because he is a nice lad actually.
He's a lovely lad. He's a really nice guy, but.
What do you think about Matchroom spreading their nest? They've got their heels firmly in at Birmingham now. Do you think that's a good move? Getting to more cities? Do you think they're? To me, they look like they're kind of stretching even further away from Box Nation at the moment. What do you guys make of that? And everyone else out there, in all honesty.
Well, look at this Matchroom card, this Box Nation card on is it the 10th of October, the 3 world title fights. That's I think Frank Warren I think it's good for boxing because it gives you can't beat competition.
Yeah,
I know Ingram loves the 90-10s, of course, but there is the matches that have been announced this week. There's quite a few 50-50 or more sort of evenly matched fights, which is only going to be good for us as sort of boxing fans and sort of online journalists, as some of you are. But no, I think the Warren card that's been announced, that's a great card, and there's some really good matchups, not just over here but stateside as well in the new season, and I really can't wait for. I know it will kick us off again 5th of September. It's these are really exciting times. I mean, you've got the Cotto Canelo fight obviously stands out, but I think Field and Smith, I don't think anyone were expecting that announcement. I thought that would be held off till next year at the earliest. But it's these are really exciting times. As you were saying, Adam, that this little Matchroom are making a power play, but Warren, you forget about Warren. He's been around this game, I think, since 1980, sort of 35 years. He and of course he obviously had that shooting. He's indestructible. He's like Captain Scarlet. He's indestructible, Frank Warren.
just won't leave.
Old fox.
Exactly. Okay, well, what else there is? Another one thing I wanted to touch on, actually. There's quite an interesting article today about, me, Dave and Ingram were talking about Tony Thompson, and there was some talk about him being drug tested against against David Price. He's come out and said that the performance against Tepper shows he wasn't on drugs test. So obviously us three, me, Ingram and Dave spoke about this. The whole thing seems absolutely crazy to me, why they're talking about drugs, how someone's failing a drugs test from years ago. Gossip, what's your views on this whole Tony Thompson thing?
If I'm completely honest, it's not something that I'm fully up to date on. I would say Tony Thompson possibly doesn't strike me as the typical character for using performance-enhancing drugs, but that's based on nothing other than instinct, which I know isn't good enough, really. I think what I have read about it, which is from fragmented articles here and there, he has defended this, in the courts. He's challenged it very, very aggressively. He's produced medical evidence of some sort of pills that he was taking for a high blood pressure. And to be honest, looking at him, you can believe he's got high blood pressure sometimes. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think realistically the way those fights ended were as a result of performance-enhancing drugs. But I appreciate it's not good enough to say that. And if someone's on them, then it's obviously a bad thing. But I don't look back at that fight and think, if Thompson had been on a different diet, it would have gone different.
Absolutely.
So it's just crazy where all this has come from. It's one of the weirdest stories that's happened this year, even though it's not that big, but it almost looks like someone in Team Price is trying to clutch at straws, maybe. But we'll move on. Let's talk. Cotto Canelo is finally on. Is this something people are looking forward to, guys, or are we bored of talking about it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And what's your thoughts on it, mate? How big do you think this is going to be? People are saying this can be up there with one of the biggest fights of all time. I personally think it's kind of been drawn out a little bit too long. Ingram, what do you make of the whole thing? I heard you and Mr. Bashir were talking about it quite a lot on your interview the other night.
To be honest, Cotto has done a lot of good things at welterweight, I like welterweight, but at middleweight, he's got no sort of... to be honest, I've come to dislike Miguel Cotto's actions at middleweight. He's made a complete disgrace of what the middleweight title means, and the sooner he gets beat, the better, so we can get a middleweight champion of some sort of class and quality, whether that be Golovkin, whether that be Danny Jacobs, whether that be Peter Quillin, whether it be Andy Lee, whoever, but just a genuine middleweight champion. That's what, because if Cotto loses, there's still that rematch clause, for what I believe. So that means even if Cotto loses, we won't see a middleweight champion again, a proper middleweight champion, until the second fight these two have. So, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on that.
I think the most relevant bit of form that Miguel Cotto actually has was when he lost to Austin Trout. I mean, he hasn't actually been in a real notable fight since then, because obviously from a form perspective, it's kind of hard to factor in the Sergio Martinez win.
Agreed.
And I lost to Austin Trout, and I'm not fancying Miguel Cotto, to be honest. I think he's been really flattered by the run of opponents he's had, and I see him getting beaten quite comprehensively by Canelo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dave?
No.
Yeah, I think... I'm not really a massive fan of Miguel Cotto. I think I'd rather watch the first fight of Margarito again. But it's not really a massive fan of the man, to be honest. So I've watched round 11 over and over again. But I'll watch the fight anyway, because I think Alvarez is going to smash him to pieces in a few rounds. He's just a light welterweight, isn't he? Bringing all these middle... I don't know. I'm just not a massive fan. What he's doing, bringing all these fighters down in weight, it's pointless. Why don't you just stay at light middleweight and instead of fighting middleweights down at light middleweight? So I just find it highly annoying, really.
But the rematch, Dave, he's got it in the rematch clause, and that's why the fight's going ahead. So I understand.
I just wish that he'd fight Margarito again and just let Margarito come in with his own hand wraps and let him get on with it. Just let Margarito get on with what he wants. Just let him put some bricks on his wrist and let him have his way with him again.
I dislike Miguel Cotto, but I don't dislike him that much.
I'm a big Margarito fan. You know, I've written about him.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Margarito's making a comeback as well, isn't he?
He is.
I hope he does, and I hope he loads them gloves up.
Oh my God!
Let's get him with Cato. Let's get the third fight made.
Oh, my stomach. Oh. Okay, fine.
Dave. What is
Dave.
that? Right.
Louis,
while we're talking about...
Did you want to say anything, Louis?
Louis on?
Is he there? Louis? Wait, gone to sleep.
Louis not there. So, we'll move on. Well, let's carry on talking about middleweights because we've got Billy Joe Saunders and Andy Lee. Firstly, what does everyone make of this being moved to Manchester? It all looks like a bit of a shame to me. It looked like a bit of a shambles how it was done. Andy Lee didn't look particularly over the moon with himself at the recent press conference. What you know, I've spoken to you quite a lot about it, Ingram. What do you think this is? You're over in Ireland. What do people make of it there?
Well, from the travelling community, I've got a few friends from the travelling community, and the whispers are from the Billy Joe Saunders side of things is that he doesn't actually believe he can beat Andy Lee. He's in it just for the money. He doesn't believe he can beat Andy Lee at all. That's what they're saying. And that when I heard that, they were saying to me, yeah, he doesn't feel he can win this fight at all. But he's going to get paid well. That's what matters to him. When I heard that, I was like, you know, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just interesting. You'd never expect that from Billy Joe Saunders. It's do you think the fight's not selling very well, or do you think not many people are interested? I think I was speaking to you, Ingram, and you and me were talking about, you know, on the wider audience, Chris Eubank versus Joe Sullivan's a bigger fight in Ireland.
Of course, it's a
do you know what I mean?
In Ireland. There's history there already because of Chris Eubank Senior and Steve Collins.
Yeah.
But think about this: if you think about pullouts and fights being stopped before fights had actually happened, David Haye, Adam Booth. Need I say any more? Yeah. And Adam Booth is he not the promoter for this fight?
Well, there's a co-promotion.
Or co-promoter, well, yeah. So Booth's got something to do with it. So, well, yeah, co-promoter. So I can imagine Booth saying, look, we ain't making much money here. We could pull this and take this to Manchester. Why not?
Chris, are you still there, mate?
I certainly am. There are two schools of thought about this one. I think Billy Joe is the better boxer of the two. Obviously, he's well-schooled, Olympic pedigree. But he's not the most powerful of punchers. Mm-hmm. And Andy Lee, let's face it, he has been in a few wars over the years, but he does have that punch. That's what makes this, for me, it's a pick 'em fight. Really, it's what do you prefer? What do you like better? I know Billy Joe, again, he's a fantastic boxer, but he isn't the most powerful of punchers, and you've always got that equaliser with Andy Lee. I think this is a really, really close fight, and it's. I don't know. I'm really on the fence. It's a pick 'em. I mean, who do you guys think? Who would you favour?
Chris, where does Billy Joe Saunders' stamina come into all this? Because he does tend to fade in fights after 6-7 rounds.
Did you see his last fight? I think he came in at I think 168, 170. He's but he's obviously he does warm weather training in Marbella. He's, to be honest with you, when you're fighting for a world title, you really don't have an excuse for not making weight. So I think he struggled. He does gas down the stretch. I mean, the Eubank fight was a case in point. First 6 rounds, he boxed Eubank's ears off, but the last 6 rounds, Eubank came right back into it, and it was closer than need be. But so that is a very good point, Ingram. Will Lee's experience, especially fighting at top level, will that stand in good stead in the later rounds? Will he be able to catch Billy Joe with one of his big bombs in the last couple of rounds?
If he does, it's lights out.
Most definitely.
And that's what I'm looking for Andy Lee to probably get out of box for the first half of the fight, and then somewhere around 6 to 8, where Saunders actually starts to slow down, starts to hold his feet to have a war, and then Lee cracks him with one. And that's it. Because Saunders, I don't think has fought anybody with the sort of power that Lee carries. And Lee's knocking guys down and out at world level. That's the thing. And I don't think there's anybody that I know in the Saunders record that has got that sort of punch power. I mean, to be fair, Spike O'Sullivan's a puncher, but he's fought nobody near the caliber of what Andy Lee's fought. So,
you were talking about Billy Joe's stamina there, Ingram,
yes.
And it's funny. I was watching a Frank Warren interview on YouTube, and he was saying, he's told Billy Joe to stop training. He regularly takes time off from the gym. I know for a fact, like other world champions and people right at the top of the game still going to the gym for a couple of hours just in the middle of the day just to keep ticking over. Yeah. The guys at the top level seem to do anyway. Do we think we could maybe see this being the difference between Billy Joe going on to be a great world champion and someone who has a couple of world title shots and might hold it for a short pace of time?
I'm not sure. Dave, what are your thoughts?
I think first of all, I thought it would sell massively well in Ireland. I thought it would. I'm surprised it got pulled and moved to Manchester because I thought it'd sell really well. But the thing with Billy Joe Saunders is, if I was Billy Joe Saunders at 18 in Beijing, I'd have stayed on for another 4 years and won the gold in London. But that kind of shows me that he's in it for the money. And I think he should beat Andy Lee. Andy Lee is very big at middleweight and is a big puncher, but he's Billy Joe Saunders as far as boxing goes, on a totally different level. I would fancy Billy Joe Saunders to outbox Lee, and I can't really see. Billy Joe Saunders is not the kind of fighter that's going to get hit with a big shot. He's not just going to get hit with a big wild shot. So I favour him massively in that fight.
Really, even though he was getting caught with shots by Eubank, I wouldn't call Eubank a. He was just going toe to toe with Eubank for the last 6 rounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't question Billy Joe Saunders' chin though. I think he's got a good chin, and it's a different fight with Andy Lee. He knows Andy Lee's a big puncher. When you're fighting someone who's not a big puncher, you do take a few more risks. I think he'll fight Lee. He'll put the first 7 rounds in the bank, and then he'll get on his bike. But he's a bit like Frankie Gavin. I don't think he's a natural middleweight. But I don't think Andy Lee is one of the best middleweights out there. So I think it's a fight that Saunders can win. And I think he'll fight the best. I think he'll go on to fight Golovkin and get beaten.
Would you say Lee's one of the biggest middleweight punchers out there, though?
Well, it will be, yeah, but I don't see him hitting Saunders with anything. I don't see him landing on Saunders. I think Saunders is on a different level technically altogether. But Lee's going to be a lot bigger, and he obviously hits a lot harder. But I think Saunders is a massive favourite in that fight.
Interesting. I don't think there really is a favourite. I think there's so many different outcomes that this fight brings. There's so many possible outcomes. It's not one of those fights you just look at it and think, only these 2 things can happen. They both have, great skill sets. So a lot of I could see, I can even see Lee being stopped on his feet late on if Billy Joe can get on top of him, if he's coming in heavy. He answered a lot of questions for me against Eubank. To be fair, he showed more stamina than he's ever done before, and Eubank does have power. So I think I'm going to go with Billy Joe on this. I think it's going to be Billy Joe points. I think Manchester, it being in Manchester as well, helps him a bit as well. But yeah, that's just my opinion. What are your thoughts?
If you watch Lee's last few performances, he's always been down on scorecards. It's just that equaliser really that he's been winning on. To be honest,
Agreed.
Yeah, I think Billy is going to win
because he has. If you look at his last 2-3 fights, 2-3 fights, maybe 4 fights, he's been down on scorecards, and it's always that lethal right-hander that does it. But yeah, I've got Billy Joe Saunders pretty much schooling him, to be honest with you.
Okay. Go on, Gossip. You were gonna say something there, mate.
Yeah. I'm agreeing mainly. I think everyone's got it spot on. I think Billy Joe Saunders by quite a way. You know, Andy Lee was getting outboxed by Matt Korobov, by Jackson at 154 £. I also think stylistically, like, although Lee is a better fighter than Eubank, the pace Eubank fights at, the way Eubank kind of turns the fight into a brawl, could possibly be even more, stamina sapping for Billy Joe. I think with such a tall, rangy fighter like Andy Lee, maybe it's going to be kept at long range a bit more. Maybe Billy Joe's going to avoid getting sucked into a close range brawl. I think he'll be able to get on his bike, and I think that will probably be easier on his stamina in the later rounds. And I agree with Dave Allen. I don't think that there's going to be like a sort of wild shot from Andy Lee that's going to catch Billy Joe. I think he's a long way ahead of Andy Lee, and I see it being quite an easy night's work if he stays disciplined.
Yeah,
interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, well, what haven't we covered this evening, guys? We've talked about everything. I suppose. What's going on with Chris Eubank at the moment? Does anyone know? He's been very quiet. There's been rumours of him going to Sky.
Eddie Hearn.
He's done well.
I heard a rumour that he'll be moving and signing with Eddie Hearn. I heard that was the first rumour I heard, and the second rumour was Al Heyman. But the Eddie Hearn rumour sounds more closer to the truth.
Yeah, what's your views on this, Gossip? If you were Chris Eubank, what would you do? What would you, if you were his advisor or his father? What do you think the best route for Eubank is? Because he can pull a crowd, and some say it's due to his father's name, but neither are less. The guy sells tickets. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, if I was Chris Eubank, there's a lot of things I'd do, Adam. I'll tell you that to begin with. But I'd have certainly fought Billy Joe Saunders in the rematch. I heard he turned down £1 million for that rematch. So that's the first thing I'd do, is try and get that fight back on. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the options out there, I would suggest that the most lucrative is possibly looking at stepping up to 168 and join with Eddie Hearn. Because if you look at the middleweight scene out there, the biggest fight for him, money-wise, is probably Billy Joe Saunders. And he's already decided not to go down that route for whatever reason. There's not much future in him fighting guys like, Golovkin at 160. So I reckon step up to 168, get on the Matchroom shows, try and get yourself amongst the Fieldings and Smith winners, maybe feed Martin Murray to him. And it's more money, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure Martin will be. How does everyone see? Chris, we've still got you in the room. What if Eubank moved up to 168? How do you think he'd get on against the Gale, Groves, and the rest?
That's a very good point. Obviously, I'm sure you'll know that De Gale and Eubank Jr have history. They have, I think there was quite a fractious sparring session many years ago. I also think, as you guys have said, that Sky would be the absolute ideal platform, Eddie Hearn, to build his profile. I think the viewers would lap up his antics. The thing that I don't like about Eubank Jr is his bleeding attitude. I think Ingram. You remember obviously Ronnie Davis trainer, and
Yes.
he showed the way that the
Disrespect.
the days, total disrespect, and that really. I mean, obviously you remember of course your days training down in Brighton, and
Yeah.
do you know also they had in that corner that night
Chris
Sanagar, who trained.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other night actually. Yeah, his face was a picture, wasn't it?
And Chris Sanagar, let's not forget, he led Glenn Catley to the World Super Middleweight title.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit of a sort of waste in resource, the way I see it. He had this pool of resource in the corner, but he just the only other thing I was going to mention we haven't touched on. I'm really, really pleased that Frank Warren has got Liam Smith a title shot. Because I think Liam Smith is probably the most underrated of the Smith family. I think he's got something about him. I like the way he carries himself, and I think obviously it's Demetrius Andre's vacant title, and I think it's a really, really good opportunity for him to become the first Smith to pick up a world title.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Do you think Liam Smith would have to move on from Box Nation to, because he's fighting for a world title and people are talking about his brothers more?
I think I think he seems to be very, very level-headed. I mean, you look at all the other three, all his three brothers are with Sky. He's with Matchroom. He's with Frank Warren. But I just think the way he carries himself he comes across as very, very shrewd. I think he seems to be doing pretty well for himself, and fair play to Frank, he's delivered him this world title shot. So I honestly think he seems to be fine the way he is, and I really, really do hope that he can sort of pull this one off.
Excellent. And we've got 3 world title fights on there. We've got Billy Joe Saunders against Andy Lee that night, and Liam Smith. And what's the other one? Remind me, guys.
Terry Flanagan, I think.
Yeah,
Terry Flanagan, of course. How touching on Terry Flanagan, how far do you think he can go? I'll ask you, Dave. He's kind of gone under the radar, and he's now a world champion. Well, how good? I really like Terry Flanagan.
I think he's really good, but I think bringing a centre together seems to be a little bit of an issue. He's not going to be a superstar because he's not the most flamboyant, and he seems to struggle a little bit. He's never going to be a massive superstar because he doesn't have the most personality in the world. But I think he's the best lightweight we've got in Britain now. I think
it's quite a statement.
Either him or Ricky Burns, I would say. But like I say, he's on Box Nation, so he's kind of swept away. So being on Box Nation and not being, he's not the most flamboyant personality, it seems. So, but if he keeps winning, he keeps winning, and he'll get big fights and he'll be making money. The same as Liam Smith. I don't think Liam Smith will care about his brothers getting the attention if he's getting paid.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Good point. Adam, there's one thing I did want to touch on before everyone goes tonight. This statement, which I'm still puzzled about, Callum Smith being the best prospect in the world. It doesn't settle well with me, and I just want to know what other people think about it.
That's Sky, isn't it? That's Sky. A lot of people think, they say everyone's the best in the world. That's just what they do. I don't think he's the best in the world. I do think he's very good, and I do think he's got the capability of fighting at a world-class level. I don't see him going to be I don't see him going unbeaten his whole career doing an Andre Ward sort of thing. But I think Matchroom and Sky have been a little bit like Joshua's a perfect example as well. Eddie Hearn says Anthony Joshua is the next heavyweight champion in the world. Any opportunity he gets. Well, I don't think I've ever heard Anthony Joshua say it. Do you know what I mean? It's I think that's just a sales thing. I don't agree with a lot of these statements. Although one thing you've got Tony Bellew, and obviously his brothers say, but Tony Bellew says he's says he's class, and a lot of people do. So I think that's where, and Joe Gallagher's saying it as well. I think you've got a lot of people behind Team Smith, so they're going to support him. But to be honest, we're going to find a lot more. We're going to find out who Callum Smith really is against Rocky Fielding.
Dave, what are your thoughts about this Callum Smith, best prospect in the world?
I think Callum Smith's good, but I think that's about it. I think Rocky Fielding will beat him.
That's what I think.
He's good. He's obviously very good, but he's not even the best prospect in Liverpool. I wouldn't have thought. I'm Britain. I'd like to see him get beat. I'd like to see Paul Smith stay not fighting.
You like him commentating though?
And I don't think Stephen Smith is really that good. I don't think he's as good as the making out. He's not boxed anybody apart from Selby and John Simpson. I thought John Simpson beat him twice as well. So that's another matter. But I think Rocky Fielding will beat Callum Smith, and I hope he does as well. So I don't like Joe Gallagher. Joe Gallagher really gets under my skin. So I'd like to see him get beat.
Okay, Dave. This is not.
Let it out, Dave. Therapy.
Anyway, well, I'll throw my 2 cents. I see it going the distance. This fight, personally, I both think they're pretty tough. We'll go with gossip first. Well, first of all, how highly do you rate Callum Smith, and what do you think about the fight, mate?
I think the first thing to say is it's a good fight. I'm very much looking forward to the fight. Quite excited for it. I see it being a win for Rocky Fielding. I think Callum Smith lacks any sort of versatility to his game. I was saying this to Ingram earlier. For me, Callum Smith is like he's got one default setting. He comes out and he's just Callum Smith. He throws a jab. He's got no lateral movement. He's got his head movement's very poor. I think his punch variety is limited. I think he just does the basics very well, but he's got nothing else. And I think as he's stepped up in level, we've seen him look less and less devastating. The knockout stopped against Sazloka and Rebrasse. There's some defensive frailties were sewn up against Rebrasse. As he stepped up, I think he's struggled a bit more. Whereas Rocky Fielding, in his last 2 or 3 fights, the improvements have been really, really evident. I mean, Rocky's timing has been so good recently. The power for Rocky, for me, I'm more convinced about Fielding's power than Callum Smith's.
Absolutely.
And I think Callum Smith will be there to be hit. And I think Rocky Fielding can time it, can expose the lack of lateral movement, expose the lack of defence. So I think Rocky Fielding's going to knock him out.
So do I.
Okay. Chris, what do you think then?
50-50 for me. I must admit,
I agree.
I honestly thought, and I think Ingram thought the same, that before his last couple of fights, I thought Rocky Fielding, best he could hope for would have been certainly British level, but possibly European at best.
Yeah.
I didn't think Rocky Fielding sort of get towards the world stage. I know he's very highly ranked with the governing bodies, but his last performance against Brian Vera, that sort of shocked me a little bit, because it's very disappointed with Brian. Oh, the bloody stoppage by referee
John Lewis.
Well.
It was in the audience.
Referee of the year.
It was in the audience judging and realised he was a referee.
Yeah, but
decade.
It's still a name though. Brian Vera is still a name, albeit a faded force, but it was just a devastating knockout performance, and it's sort of. I'm really, really surprised this fight has been made so soon. I think it could have been, it might have been a next summer type job, but I do like Callum Smith. He's very quiet. He's very unassuming. He always speaks well. He's a very respectful chap, and much Fielding the same. They both seem like good, decent young chaps, and they've both got a bright future. But I think. What I will give Smith, he's got a very good body punch. He's a very good body puncher. That's probably one of his key skills, his key strengths. I must admit, with Dave, I'm not a big fan of Joe Gallagher either. I think he's sort of he's like got this celebrity trainer thing about him.
Yes.
he sort of I think he comes across as if he was a bar of chocolate he'd eat himself.
Yeah, but he made a statement. I think he said that if Paul Smith was with him for his whole career, Paul Smith would have definitely been a world champion.
I don't know. If Paul Smith, I mean, I like Paul Smith from when he was in the Contender, and
that's about where it stopped and ended with me, right there, the Contender.
Yeah, I mean, he had Pepe Correa and was giving him the advice. I mean, he was saying he kept telling him, go to the body, but I just hope we don't have to see his happy, smiley face on the commentary. He's always seems to be full of the joys of spring, this Paul Smith, and he's on the telly.
Dave's favourite.
Can't believe his luck. That's why. Okay. Have we spoken to everyone else about this, or is there anything else anybody wanted to?
Lee?
Yeah.
Lee? Is there anything you want to add to this Callum Smith fielding debate?
I think, to be honest with you, I know everyone's going for fielding, but I think Smith's going to win. I'm very impressed with him, actually. I know loads of people have got a lot of hate for Gallagher. I know he comes across very arrogant, and he's a bit of an arsehole, if I'm not honest with you. But that doesn't mean all his fighters are. And I like Smith. I do like Smith. And I think he's going to beat Fielding. I do. I think he'll beat him.
Wow.
Gallagher. I hate Gallagher.
All right, we can't just come on and say we hate.
Come on, Adam.
If Gallagher trained me, I would want me to get beat. That is how strongly I feel about it.
Adam, let Dave have therapy. Let him speak out. Let it all come out, Dave. Let it come out, Dave.
Right.
No, it's just he thinks he's more important than the fighters, and that's just not right.
It does a little bit, yeah.
It makes me want him more to get beat. I want Frampton to beat Quigg, Fielding to beat both Smiths.
Well, once.
Both at the same time.
Handicap match, yeah.
And then fight Stephen Smith and beat him as well.
I do think that's why a lot of his fighters get a lot of ridicule because of the way Gallagher is.
Yeah, it's for definite.
Yeah, he's otherwise if he were a different trainer, if they were different trainers, I don't think they'd be ridiculed as much as they are. But like you say, he's stone-faced old Joe.
If you put Joe Gallagher's statistics up, he has got a lot of his fights and a lot of his title wins have been in 90-10 fights. If you see Gallagher in 50-50 fights, or fights where his fighter is meant to lose the fight, how many fights has he turned around and won the fight with his fighter? You'll find that the statistics show they're very few and far between.
I will give him some credit. Like Quigg looked great against Martinez, and Crawler did really well despite the result.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of he must be doing something because look, he's got younger fighters coming through as well.
I'm not being funny. Adam, I'm not being funny, right? That guy who was world champion, right? That Dali guy. I'm sorry, but he was shocking. I mean, he was shocking.
Yeah.
Crawler was good, but Dali was absolute. That's a world champion. He was absolutely shocking. Crawler looked like a world champion that night. If you're looking at the two guys, Crawler looked like the world champion, and Dali looked like the challenger.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
He was shocking. Yeah. But we have to see it all over again, don't we? So that's going to be fun. Can't wait. Pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I thought the fight was like an area title fight, to be honest, the Crawler Perez fight. So
there you go.
I thought it was dreadful. I don't think Crawler's that good at all, really. I don't think he's any good at all. I think Flanagan would beat him easily.
I have Flanagan beating Crawler, to be fair.
I think Campbell beats him, Burns beats him, Mitchell beats him. The fact that I beat John Murray makes me physically sick. But there you go.
Okay, well, thank you, Dave.
Dave, they need to employ you at Sky or Box Nation, one of the two, mate. You'd be great cracking commentary.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'd last very long. So
you could sit right next to Paul Smith doing the commentary.
Me and Paul Smith. I've met him once actually, and I didn't find him to be the nicest gentleman in the world. So maybe that's the reason.
Maybe that's why. It still hurts. So
yes, a little bit. Put me deep.
Right. On that note, we'll we'll wrap it up. I think. What do you reckon, Ingram?
Well, unless Dave's got more therapy and wants to let it out a bit more. I mean, it's all
we can
good for
talk
us.
off air all night, and you guys can do that. But anyway, thanks for coming on, guys. It's been a good bit of fun.
Really enjoyed it.
Been a real pleasure,
Thanks.
chaps.
Yeah, cheers, Chris. I don't know who else. Gossip, you still there, mate?
Yeah. Enjoyed talking to all you gents. Have a good evening, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we should try and do this a bit more regular, guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys. And Dave, all the best. What was it? Next Saturday you fight?
Next Saturday is, yeah.
Yeah, and get tickets from what's your Twitter?
David the White R1, I think,
Yeah.
possibly.
And I believe Maxie Hughes is on the card as well. It's not bad.
He's off the card now. So.
Oh, is he? Oh,
yeah.
oh.
Sorry about that. If any of you,
Anyway, I tried.
anyone who is coming is coming, then Max Hughes is still on the bill. If anyone wanted tickets, I'll take that back. He's still on the bill, so get him off me.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, brilliant.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Cheers,
All right, guys.
Cheers,
Have a good night. Cheers.
Take
mate.
care, guys.
Take
Bye.
care.